hanging out with Brian Vaughn in the WSE Lounge, giving you all your latest wrestling news. Hey everybody, this is Matthew Lee Matthews / Papa Butt, father of Young Butt, best tag team in the world. Singer, songwriter, musician, also for the theme music on EPE, Christian, and welcome to the WSE Lounge. This is Little Guido, former ECW tag champion and two-time former ECW cruiserweight champion, and you're listening to WSE The Lounge. My children, this is Papa Soto, the Vice of Wrestling, and you're listening to the WSE Lounge. All right, guys, Trevor Murdoch, three-time WWE tag team champion. You're listening to the WSE Lounge. This is Tony Blanchard, and you are listening to WSE Lounge.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another great edition of WSE Lounge. At this time, first of all, I want to bring on my special co-host, the Jammin Music Man. Welcome to the WSE Lounge, Jammin Music Man.
How are you, Brian?
I'm doing good. Great to have you on today as special co-host. And ladies and gentlemen, if you got any questions or comments during this show for Little Guido, please leave them below, and I will answer those. I'll ask him the questions, and he will answer the questions. And without any further ado, a man who has worked for ECW, WWE, TNA, now known as Impact Wrestling, and now House of Hardcore, please welcome the full-blooded Italian, Little Guido, as he returns to the WSE Lounge.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be back. What's going on, guys?
You're very, very welcome, sir. Great to have you back on. I know the last time we talked about ECW, WWE, and other stuff. So, what have you been up to?
Well, I mean, we already got that stuff behind us. Right now, still doing my independence. You know, I still got my regular gig going on. I'm an account manager for a security firm that I run here in New York, along with doing some work in the courts. And now, since we spoke, I've been doing House of Hardcore, and they blended in with Impact. Last week, I was doing a couple of shows for them. So, you never know with this business. It just seems like, things just keep opening up and things just keep going on. And I think the indies are hotter than ever right now. And, there's a lot of work out there, and that's good for the guys. It's very good for the guys. And, I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm not doing full-time anymore because, I really can't. But, I just like watching all the younger guys and seeing everybody has a place to work. As you can know, there's a new company out there, AEW, and
yes,
that
sir.
looks like it's going to be good. They got a lot of money behind them. They got a TV deal, so another opportunity for the boys, and wish them luck too. And that's it. Just kind of hanging out.
Awesome. James, you got a question?
I just want to ask you, Guido, where did you get your training at?
Well, it depends. I started training in Parsippany, New Jersey under the Kodiak Bear, Mike Masters, Jerry Fazio, Gino Caruso, that group for the ECPW. I started training there in 1991 to do American-style pro wrestling. And a few years later, I got involved with UWFI, and I was trained in Japan with Billy Robinson, Billy Scott, and Gene Leidig. So I started my American-style pro wrestling in Parsippany, New Jersey, at the ECPW Wrestling School. And then I started, as time went on, I got a job in Japan, worked for UWFI, and then I hooked up with Billy Robinson, had a chance to meet Danny Hodge a couple times, and actually Lou Fez, so that was a great opportunity. And I trained with Billy Robinson for a couple of years. So that was great.
Very nice.
Do you still keep in touch with Big Sal and Tony Mama Luke?
Yeah, sure. I talk to Tony Mama Luke all the time. He's good friends with my son now, and then my wife will be friends with me. Big Sal I talk to a lot too, and I still consider a good friend. And actually, I just spoke to him last week because we at House of Hardcore show. He was doing an autograph sign there before. I wasn't there, so what was that? Two weeks ago, not last week, the week before. So, Big Sal, he don't really keep too busy anymore. He'll do some conventions and shit like that. So, yeah, you still keep in touch. I just wrestled with Tracy for House of Hardcore in Nashville, Tennessee, about 3 weeks back, so I still keep in touch with him. Talked to Big Guido on the phone. I got many, many partners. And pretty much I get along with all of them, so I get a chance to see them here or there. Again, when you're not on the road with the guys anymore, working full-time for the companies, you don't see anybody anymore. That's the way this business is. If you're going strong for 15, 20 years, you could be with somebody, and then all of a sudden it could just end. And everybody goes back home, and everybody lives in different areas. So that's the hard thing about when you stop working for the major companies. You become family, you become traveling with certain people, and you're with them more than with your family. And then all of a sudden one day, it could just end for you. And then you don't fly around with everybody. You try to keep in touch as much as you could.
Oh yeah, most definitely. How's your son doing in wrestling?
He's doing good. He wrestled. He was 2 years ago. He was 13-1.
Mm-hmm.
So he did. He's doing good. He's wrestling this year. He took a year off last year. He's into football. He wanted to do lacrosse. He wrestled. He wrestled since he was like 4 years old. And then,
oh wow.
Yeah, he wrestled. He's 4 years old, and like I said, he's in 9th grade now, going into 10th. And he didn't want to wrestle last year, so he ended the season. He ended up getting MVP of the season, and then ended up telling the coach, which was very hard to do. The coach was very upset that he just didn't want to do it. And here's a guy that's 13-1, and the only match he lost 8-7. So it was kind of upsetting for the coach, but you know what? I wouldn't force him to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But then so then last year he did football, which he loves. Did very well at football, and then tried lacrosse. Wasn't a big fan of it, but he tried. And now he's telling me next year he wants to wrestle again. So sounds 20 year when he goes back to school, and he'll be wrestling again. Then we'll see how he done. He wrestled for like 6-7 years, and then took a year off. So hopefully taking that year off don't hurt him too much.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. You can't force your kids to do anything. I've never forced him to be a pro wrestler, which honestly he has no interest in. Like he comes to my shows. He actually came to an independent show with me last week. But he doesn't. That's not his forte, and I'm kind of glad. He does well in school. I'd rather him get a good education, get out there, get a job with a 401k, and do what you want to do.
Yeah, that's great that you don't force it on him, and you let him make his own decision, about what he wants to be in life. But he is under a great learning tree in you, Guido, because you've been up and down the road with many people in the wrestling business. And speaking of that, I wanted to ask you, do you have as much fun in House of Hardcore as you did in ECW, or do you compare it the same?
Well, what's great about House of Hardcore, it kind of reminds me of ECW. It's run by Tommy Dreamer.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when we're at the ECW arena 2 weeks ago, there's 1,200 people there, and it feels like it's 1996 still. Because of the diehard fans. So, I enjoy working for the House of Hardcore because they really draw the hardcore fans. A lot of times when you do these other independents, there's fundraisers and stuff like that. And of course I'm not talking about ROH. That's another place. I wrestled there for years too.
Uh-huh.
That's another place that has hardcore fans that know who you are from ECW and WWE. So right now it's wrestling lately for House of Hardcore. One thing reminds me of ECW. There's a bunch of ECW guys there, but Dreamer puts his heart and soul in everything he does, and he's doing very well. He's up to Hardcore 56 or 57, whatever he's up, and I'm glad I can say I was part of at least 20-something of them by now. I don't do all his shows. A few that he booked me on that I couldn't make, and he don't use me on every single show. There's a lot of great up-and-coming talent, and a lot of guys that wrestle for him ended up going to NXT and other places. So, it's very good. You know, he has a platform. He has a Twitch TV. He does other stuff. So, you know, for the younger guys, if you get an opportunity to work for him, that would be great. You know, I love it. You know, Tommy Dreamer's been friends with him. He helped me a lot years ago in the business. If it wasn't for him, a lot of stuff wouldn't have happened for me at ECW. You know, so Tommy, I still consider a good friend of mine. I speak to him all the time. You know, I wish him luck. I think he's going to do well in anything he does.
Okay, James, you got another question?
Were you a fan of ECW before joining the company?
Well, no, and I'll tell you why. Because I started in ECW when it was Eastern Championship Wrestling. I wrestled as Damien Stone. This is before Paul Heyman came in. Todd Gordon was the owner. Paulie wasn't even there yet. And then I was wrestling for Eastern Championship Wrestling, and then I went to Japan, like I told you earlier. I got an opportunity to go to Japan and wrestle that style. So I went to Japan, so I wasn't really in the States. I was living in Nashville. ECW never went out there, so I never heard of it. When UWFI closed down in probably, I would say, 1996, I came back to the United States, and I went to Puerto Rico to wrestle for Carlos Colon. And then I started hearing about ECW. I never really seen it yet. And then I met Porter Rotano, whatever his name is. And he was Rotano, yeah, I fucked up his name. He's a good friend of mine too. I love him. I just fucked that stuck on his name. And we were wrestling out in Puerto Rico, and he's like, "Hey man, Sandman and Tommy Dreamer, they all say hello." You know, he's like, "We're doing this thing with ECW," and I said, "Yeah, I heard of it. I never really saw it though, because I didn't see it. It wasn't when I was in Tennessee and Japan. It didn't go there in those days. It went to Japan after that. Went to Japan in like 97, 98, and started getting there. But when I was there, you know, when I was in Japan in end of 95, beginning of 96, they were going to go in there. So I never really heard of the Extreme Championship Wrestling until I actually went down and they told me and I said, "Oh, tell those guys I said hello. I know them from when I wrestled with the Spoldies, IWCCW at the time." And then when we went back to Puerto Rico, I saw Rotano again, and he's like, "Hey man, Dreamer wants you to give him a call." So I came back from Puerto Rico. I gave Dreamer a call. He's like, "Come down to Queens. I want to introduce you to Paul Heyman and blah blah blah." And then I went down there, and then I started working for them. So the only reason I wasn't a fan of it is because I never saw it really when it was Extreme Championship Wrestling. I was there when it was Eastern Championship Wrestling, and in 1994 when it turned into Extreme Championship Wrestling, I wasn't around. I was in Japan doing that style, so I never saw it. So I couldn't be a fan of it because I never saw it, you know. And as soon as I came home from Japan, I ended up, you know, going to Puerto Rico and meeting Japan, and the next thing you know, I went there and I started with them. So that's the only reason I was never a fan of it. It's not like I didn't watch it; I was just never exposed to it.
Tommy Dreamer is such a great leader. Do you compare him to Paul Heyman or no?
Tommy Dreamer learned a ton of shit from Paul Heyman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Paulie took Dreamer under his wing as far as this goes when, you know, in the studio and editing and stuff like that. So, you know, I see a lot of Paul Heyman in Tommy Dreamer. You know what I mean? So, as leader, yeah, I see Tommy work a lot of ways that Paul was, and there's a lot of things that Tommy doesn't do that Paul would do. You know, but so you know, I see a lot in Tommy Dreamer, Paul Heyman, just because, you know, Paul Heyman took him under his wing back in the early day, and you know, Dreamer used to go to the studio in that house when he used to produce TV, and you know, Paul Lee taught him a lot. So you know, I see a lot of Paul Lee and Tommy Dreamer, not a lot of Tommy Dreamer and Paul Lee, because Paul Lee taught him a lot.
Okay. Now, any chance of any other titles being introduced besides the TV title in House of Hardcore?
That, you know what, I would have no idea. I would have no idea what he's doing with that. That I wouldn't know. And that's something, what I do know is not something I would expose here, because it's not something that's out there. So I wouldn't want to be saying that. Fire me. I'll never work on him again. Trying to get me fired now?
No, I'm not trying to get you fired. No, Guido, I'm not trying to do that. James, you got another question?
You said you wrestled in Japan. Who were some of your Japanese influences? Like, who are some wrestlers you looked up to?
Well, honestly, I didn't see too much wrestling in Japan when I was younger. I didn't really know any Japanese wrestlers. I didn't know who they were until I started going there. Then I met, Takada was the champion at the time. Then you had Yamazaki, you had Kanahara, you had Takayama. God bless him, he's crippled right now. I don't know if you know these guys. These are all guys that wrestled within Japan. But no, I didn't. Honestly, when I was a kid, I'm a lot older than you guys were. I was exposed to WWE because I lived in New York. We didn't get, I didn't know much about, Japanese. You didn't see Japanese wrestling or anything like that. So I didn't see that. I used to see WCW, which was because it was on TBS. I used to get that at 6:05. So, I got to be honest with you, I didn't really even know who Tony Inoki was until I ended up started going there and then realizing who these big stars were. And that's only because I wasn't exposed to it. I didn't see it. There was no internet. Back in 1992, 93, there was no internet or anything. So how do how would you ever see any of that? That all came about in like 95, 96, and that's when ECW had a lot of the internet. But by that time, I was already in Japan. So it was very hard for me to know who Japanese stars were when I was growing up watching. I was growing up watching 9, 10, 11, 12. That was when, it was Bob Backlund, Superstar Billy Graham. If a Japanese wrestler didn't come work for Vince McMahon at that time, which a lot of them didn't, there's no way if I would know who they were. Because it's not like it is now. There's no internet. Or like it is started in 1995. So it's hard for me to know who those people are.
Did you get a chance to wrestle in All Japan Wrestling?
No, I never did. I wrestled in 01, UWFI, and a couple of. I wrestled with the after that he was running Smash. Once I finished with UWFI and I came back to the States, I got hooked up right with ECW, which I was exclusive there for 40 years. I couldn't go anywhere. And then when that closed down in 2002, I did independence for about a year and a half, 2 years. I went to WWE in 2000. When that closed down in 2000, I did independence, and then I basically went to WWE in 2002. So, and then I was in WWE in 2002 to 2009 or 8. Then was home for a year. Then went back for a year. So I never had really. Once I got going in ECW back in 1996, I never really was free to do anything besides ECW and then WWE. And before that was UWFI. So no, I never really had a chance to do any of those.
Do you ever regret looking back at the success that WCW Saturday Night had on the Superstation at 6:05? Because I used to watch it back in the day when it came on. Do you ever regret not being able to work over at WCW Saturday Night on that show?
Well, I don't regret it because that was the same time as WCW was the same time as ECW. So it was like I could have actually went there. I got a phone call when they were doing towards the end when ECW was kind of going down and WCW wasn't doing great either.
Yeah.
They started doing that whole thing with the cruiserweights, and I got a call. Chris Canyon was trying to get some guys to do this tag team cruiserweight, and they wanted me and Tony Monaluke. And I didn't know the state of ECW, but it wasn't doing well. WCW, not that was doing well, but so me and Tony actually had an opportunity to go over there, and this would be probably close to the year 2000 because we decided to stay with ECW, and ECW closed down a few months later. But then WCW closed down probably a month after that. So either way, if I would have jumped ship, it would have made a difference. I would not have had a job for that much longer anyway. And what I did is, I stuck with Paul Heyman because he's the one that gave me my start in the very beginning of ECW, and my name in ECW, Little Guido, is from him. And you know what? Honestly, in 2002 I went to WWE, and that was because of Paul Heyman. He was the head writer, and he's the one that got me hired in that company. So he did very well by me in ECW. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people badmouth him, and like I said, they have the right to do it. I've said this on many interviews. I don't, a lot of people got screwed over by him. He's never done anything to me personally. He got my job in ECW, and he got me my job in WWE. It took about a year or so after ECW closed down. But after not speaking to him within a year, I get a phone call from him, and he was telling me that the office is going to be calling me, that I'm going to be working for them, and the people that are pissed off, and did he bounce a few checks on me back in the day? Absolutely, he did. And if I add up all the money I made in WWE in the past 8-9 years, and all
Yeah.
I'm fine. I do well. I'm good. I consider him a friend, and he's going strong right now, and I'm happy for him. And I'm saying that because I need it. I'm not saying it because I need anything from him, because I don't need anything from him. But I'll never forget what he done for me. So.
Okay, I wanted to ask you this one more question before I get to my last question. Now, you might know this, you might not, but I always heard something about that when WCW was in business, that at one time Eric Bischoff had approached Paul Heyman about possibly doing a ECW invasion. Is that true?
Well, obviously we did it with WWE in 1997.
Yes.
I don't know if that's 100% true, but I could see it maybe being true only because Eric Bischoff hated WWE and Vince McMahon and would do everything he could to put him out of business, as we all know through the documentaries, and Eric Bischoff said it himself. As far as, what year would this be? Because I was part of the invasion with ECW and Monday Night Raw. I did a match with Stevie Richards. The first one.
It was when Mike Awesome went over there.
Well, I remember that because I was traveling with Mike Awesome. I was waiting for Mike Awesome at the airport, and he no-showed. So I don't think so, simply because Paul Lee was so pissed off that Mike Awesome left. I was there that night that he had to come back and drop the belt to Taz, and he didn't know he was dropping it to Taz. They wouldn't even let Mike Awesome in the dressing room. Mike Awesome had to pull up in the car. He had to come through the front door, walk to the ring. He dropped the belt to Taz, who he didn't even know. Paul Lee pulled a fast one on him.
Yeah.
He didn't even know he was going to wrestle a WWE guy. So here a WCW guy came in and actually did a job to a WWE guy, not an ECW guy, because Taz at the time was in WWE.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember that, but that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I remember that because
I do remember that.
Yeah.
So Mike Awesome had no idea that he was wrestling. He knew he was going to drop the belt, but he didn't know to who.
Because I remember Taz.
I remember watching that on ECW on TNN.
Yeah, I think they put it was from the fan cam because it wasn't a TV taping. It wasn't I believe that wasn't a TV taping at the time, but they always did a fan cam stuff. Feinstein would always tape stuff, and he could always put it on. So what happened was the guy screwed us over and left. And the next week, we weren't scheduled to tape TV, so we just had him come to the house show. I believe it was a house show. I forget where it was. I believe it was just a house show. But we filmed it on fan cam, and we showed it on TNN. Yeah, showed clips of it on TNN, but it wasn't a scheduled TV taping like we were going to do TV. We didn't have TV scheduled, and we just needed to get the belt off him, put it on one of our guys. So we did it at the very next show after he showed up on Nitro or whatever he did. And then they took the footage from the fan cam, and I'm 95% sure this is the way it went. It was a long time ago. They took the footage and they put it on TNN. So yes, it was on TNN. I beat them, but it wasn't a regular TNN taping.
Okay, you got one last question for me, James?
I was just going to throw this out there. It's hard to believe that this year makes 20 years when ECW appeared on TNN. At one point, did you realize that when ECW was on TNN, did you start to realize that ECW's future was looking bleak?
Well, when ECW first went to TNN, it was the opposite. When we first got on there, it was a major station. It was a big deal when we first got on there. It was after we were on there that Paul Heyman, for whatever reason, wasn't getting along with the station. The station wasn't agreeing with stuff that I guess Paul was putting on, and there was heat between Paul Lee and the station. And we're in the network, and then Paul Lee was doing stuff on the TV where he cursed the whole thing, all the promote bosses out over there, and they kept bleeping them, and so I don't know how much of it's the work, shoot, but I know there was a lot of network problems, and TNN didn't like WWE, I believe, so I mean, when it first happened, it was great because we went from MSG to TNN. TNN was a big station for us. So when it first happened, I thought it was going to be great, but shortly after that, I realized we were fucked.
my last question to you is, can you let the fans know where they can follow you at and find you on social media? And do you have any upcoming appearances you'd like to promote?
Yeah, I got, you can follow me on Instagram, Nunzio_Guido. Or it's Guido_Nunzio. However, you'll find it. You just put Nunzio_Guido.
Okay.
And you see a blue check. That's me. And same thing on Twitter. It's the same thing. You'll see my name come up. It'll say James Maritato.
Okay.
So,
and do you?
That's a good follow. So promote it. Give me a follow.
Okay.
See what's going on. And my next show it's July 6th. It's in Ohio. That stuff coming up in Ohio. You know, in my head, I don't have my book in front of me, so I don't have anything else on my head. I just know my next show is in Ohio, July 6th. So, follow it up. It's out there. But that's it. Follow me on Instagram. I'm always posting my posters and where I'm going. I post a lot of old stuff from WWE and ECW. Just posted something last night. Me hitting people with a cane, bringing back some old stuff. So if you don't follow me now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for returning to the WSE Lounge and being on, Guido, and I wish you the best in all your future.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Frank. Send our quit.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a special co-host, the Jammin Music Man. You can check out his YouTube channel, the Jammin Music Man, James Green. And also, that was former ECW, WWE, TNA wrestler, current House of Hardcore wrestler Little Guido. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and that was the last time that you'll hear the entrance theme of the wrestling part of the show. And let's go to commercial break.
Hello there, this is Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Secret, and you're listening to WSE, my home gig. This is Mike Mooneyham. I want to tell all you fans out there, don't miss the WSE Lounge. You'll be glad you caught this great show.
We'll see you Friday, folks.